Good evening, darlings. I received the following anonymous question, which says, Lord Thronduil, I was wondering at what point exactly it was that you decided to hate Thorin. I know that you don't like him now, but was there ever a time where you did like him? I'm just curious what turned you against him. Please explain. Well, darling, there was a time when he was much younger. This is before he was Oakenshield, back when he was just Thorn II, where we actually got along quite well. In fact, I had a lot of hope for when he eventually was to take the crown, for sort of having a true peace between our peoples. You know, there's been a long history of animosity between our peoples, and I had hoped that since Thorn seems so much more open-minded than his father, or in particular his grandfather, who had on many occasions, well, I don't need to bring up the past. Let's just say that there were many unpleasant sort of negotiations on one way or another, and he did enjoy flaunting his wealth and status, or if any of our people had been killed, he liked to bring it up. It was sort of a little game for him, and I'd never sort of appreciated it. His son was a little bit better. Thrain was much sort of more aware of the fact that doesn't help with diplomatic situations. But Thorn really sort of... we seem to have a curiosity and sort of a sense of justice or fairness was very important to him, and so I thought, although I knew it would be difficult, that we could over time sort of find a way to work past all of the sort of history that our peoples have with each other. And we did have our moments. Let's be frank here. We did have our moments where, when particularly subjects like history came up, that we did sort of bigger here or there, but we would hold our tongue for the better of the conversation, and I really did have so much hope. I know that as he sort of was stepping up into his role after he was named his father's heir, which of course was going to happen, but once he sort of had to take on the responsibility little bit by little bit, his attitude and outlook just started to change a little bit, and I'm positive it had to do with his grandfather. I'm 100% positive, because, you know, he had to sort of step in to do talks. You know, he visited the Greenwood a lot, and of course I was in Erebor often as well, but bit by bit that suspicion sort of took hold, shall I say, and of course it was never as bad as Thrain or Thror, but it was there, and I don't know exactly what point sort of started to extend the tension between us, but once it started, it was like lighting a fire in a dry forest. It just went very quickly downhill, and just being in each other's presence just sort of set each other off, and we made our peace multiple times afterwards, of course, but I think when he wouldn't take my warnings, you know, of course, Thrain and Thrall wouldn't listen to me at all, but I have had experiences with drakes, and I know what something as powerful as the heart of a mountain will call forth, especially when you have that much hoarding going on, and I'd seen the signs, of course. And I tried many times to convince Thorn that he should step up and take charge of that, and I was not trying to tell him to dethrone any of his family, which I think he may have mistakenly interpreted it as, And I think that was sort of the beginning of the end there. And then, of course, when Smaug arrived, you know, I don't know how much of it was him being upset with himself for being wrong, because of course he was. I do know that I had a part in that. Of course, I did arrive. I thought about putting my armies against Smaug, but I remembered what happened the last encounter between my people and a dragon, and worms do not go down easily, even with a rain of arrows, even with an army of swords and axes. It doesn't do enough. You can't just sort of hit it until it falls over. And perhaps there was still some fear, and I think it was rightly so. I've seen what happens when you lose most of your people, and I was not ready to repeat that at all. Not for a moment. I think that's the moment when Thorin decided that he could not repair the relationship between us. So, you know, there was aid offered. I did try after they were forced to leave their homes. But Thror would have nothing from me, and I don't know how much Thorin ever knew about that. He seems to think that I gave no aid whatsoever, and I did try multiple times to offer food or supplies, and I was basically spat in the face for offering, so I ceased doing so. So that's sort of the story from my point of view. I'm sure Thorn's version is entirely different. I'm sure 100% the opposite. But there you have it. That's what it is. So, I hope that answers your question, darling. And have a good evening.